What is up, guys? It is a cool 42 degrees out, and since it's under 50, I'm gonna go ahead and start getting excited for ice fishing. I've got all my stuff from the upstairs in the garage pulled down, and I am ready to start going through my gear and start getting ready for the upcoming season. As you guys know, the last 2 years ice fishing's been kind of crappy. I'm up here in Maine, and we really didn't get a lot of good weather last year, and we never really had safe ice, especially in the southern part of the state. North was pretty good. We didn't get on as many trips as we wanted to, and we didn't get any overnights last year. So I'm hoping this year is going to be the year for us to do all that. As I was getting my gear out, I was getting all these jet sleds, and I decided I'm going to make a little video so I can tell you guys which jet sled is the best jet sled for you to get. And I'm going to give you a little spoiler alert. I'm not going to wait till the end of the video. I'm going to give you the answer right now. The best jet sled that you can get for ice fishing is whatever jet sled works best for the situation you are in. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What went behind my decision to get what jet sled and for what purpose that jet sled meets. Stick around and maybe I'll show you guys some questions you should be asking yourself to figure out what one works best for your situation. The first jet sled I want to talk about is this Pelican Trek 60. It's just shy of 60 inches long, 24 inches wide, and 12.5 inches deep. If you have this jet sled from Walmart that costs roughly $124, this is what I want you to do with it. All right, all jokes aside, let's talk about this one a little bit. It is narrow, it is small. Can it get you out on the ice? Yes, it can. You just can't fit a lot of gear in this. If you want to throw a pack basket, a chair, and maybe some bait buckets and a little bit of food, this sled would be good. However, when it comes to the price point of $124, I strongly feel like this is not the best option for the size and for the money that you're going to spend for it. Like all the other jet sleds, this does come with a rope. This would be super simple and easy to pull out onto the ice if you didn't have a ton of gear and if you were just trying to go out early season. However, I just don't think it's worth the money. I actually just got this sled from a relative, and I'm probably going to give it to my dad because I think it could probably be useful maybe pulling deer out if we happen to not get skunked like we did last year. So as you guys can see, once you put your auger, your drill for your auger, and your bait bucket, and your trap basket in this sled, it doesn't leave a lot of room. So if you want to bring a shack, a heat source, food, coffee, maybe a couple Little Debbie snacks, you're going to be making a couple trips, or you're going to have to start putting stuff on your back or having those kids lug stuff out. Either way, it's not going to be a great time. So let's go ahead and say this sled is not going to be a good sled for you guys to take out on the ice. Let's check out the other ones. Next up is the Shappell Jet Sled XL. This one's about 66 inches tall, 31 inches wide, and about 12.5 inches deep. This was the first jet sled that I bought, other than maybe some little cheap ones from Walmart when I really started getting some gear going. I used this jet sled for quite a few years, and when I started the YouTube channel is when I started accumulating more gear, and I started to outgrow this one. However, instead of throwing this on Facebook Marketplace for a couple bucks, I kept it. And the reason why I kept it is because you have early and late ice, meaning the ice is thinner early in the year and it starts to thin out a little bit later in the year. So sometimes you can't bring a snowmobile, four-wheeler, side-by-side, or any of the toys out to drag your gear, and you got to do it the old-fashioned way with a little bit of manpower. Typically, an early or late ice, I bring the ice auger that is a pistol bit. It goes right to my drill, so it's pretty light. A lot of times I do not bring my ice shack because it's usually warm enough that you don't need it, which means I also don't need a heat source. I kind of go as light as I can because I don't want to have to drag a bunch of gear out and get burnt out before I even get out on the ice. So let's load this up with what my early and late ice gear usually looks like. All right, guys, so I loaded up the same stuff that I put in the Pelican sled in the Shappell. As you can see, I got everything pulled to the back. I got my auger, I got my traps, I got my bait, and I got my drill for the auger. And I got enough room I can sit in this bad boy. However, if I'm sitting in it, that means Chloe or G or Ariane are pulling it, and that's not gonna make them too happy to start off the day. So let's see if we can get some more gear in here. All right, so this is my case for my GoPros. So we should probably put that in here because I like to take you guys along with me. My rod locker so I can do some jigging because early in the season, the trout love to hit the worms. Well, Chloe decided to get out of bed, so let's grab her stuff. Now she can put some traps in. And I have this bucket right here that usually I put some tools in, maybe some tackle. I got all my spikes for the shack if I do bring that. So I can put that right there in the front. As you can see, this is filling up pretty quick, but everything is nice and secure inside of the sled. Now, if the temperatures happen to get a little bit lower, so you did want to bring a shack, you can put a shack on top of this with a little bit of rearranging. One quick bungee cord over this, everything's going to be secure and you'll be able to keep it from sliding out of the sled. So as I told you guys before, the smaller Pelican sled was about $124 at Walmart. This Shappell XL I bought at a small shop and it cost me $99 plus tax. So with tax, this sled right here was actually cheaper than that tiny sled, and I couldn't even fit half of what I have in this sled. Obviously, if you're good at Tetris, you can fit even more in the little nooks and crannies of this sled. You can have a backpack. Yes, you can fit a little bit more in the other sled if you pack it in there nice and neat as well. But if you guys are anything like me, I'm too excited. I want to load up my sled and I want to get out on the ice. So before I go over the last sled, and obviously from what you guys saw at the beginning of the video, the biggest sled, and definitely my favorite sled if I have a four-wheeler or a snowmobile to pull it. I want to talk to you guys about some choices that I had to make when I was picking out a sled. There are heavier duty sleds with better hitches, and overall just better material. The thing that was most important to me was being able to fit in the back of my truck in between my wheel wells. So the next sled that I got is the Shappell Magnum, and that one fits in the back of my truck in between my wheel wells, and I can shut my tailgate, which was super important to me. There are some other Augers sleds that are much heavier duty, much more expensive, but it wouldn't allow me to close my tailgate, and I just didn't like that not being secured in the back of the truck. The reason for that is I tend to have all my gear in the back of the truck, and I don't need the whole thing sliding out. The other important thing is getting the best bang for your buck. Those two sleds were pretty comparable in pricing, but as you can see, one was a little bit cheaper and had a lot more room. So that's why I like the Shappell XL for early and late ice when I'm pulling it out. Another important thing to me was availability. You got to be careful when you're ordering stuff online. The Shappell Magnum that I bought, I actually had in my shopping cart online all ready to order it. But because of how bulky and heavy it is, the shipping fee was going to be $300. So depending on where you are, if you don't have access to that Shappell and there's another brand that's closer to you that works size-wise for you, you might want to go with that brand. I was able to find all these sleds pretty local, so I didn't have to pay those outrageous shipping fees. And the last thing I looked for a jet sled is how I would be fishing. So I have the smaller one for early and late ice, and I have the bigger one for when the ice is safe enough to have a snowmobile or a four-wheeler on it. And also something I really want to get into, and I've wanted to for the last couple of years, is overnight fishing. When you start doing overnights, it's a whole new ball game for the equipment you need. You'd have to start bringing sleeping gear, food, cooking gear, entertainment, and did I mention snacks? You're also going to have to bring gear to charge all your cameras if you have a YouTube channel, or something to charge your phone to make sure you have access to someone, which you should always have just to be safe. You're also going to need a heat source, something to run that heat source. I use a 20-pound propane tank. And the most important and the kids' favorite thing is a nice bucket to use for a bathroom. This is the Jet Sled Magnum. This thing is 71 inches tall, 45 inches wide, and 12.5 inches deep. This is by far my favorite jet sled. Yeah, we can have smaller ones we can pull out onto the ice, but if we're using this one, that means one thing. That means we have the snowmobile or the four-wheeler out on the ice, and we're pulling our gear out with that, which means we have good, safe ice, and that's what all of us want this year after 2 crappy years. What I like about this jet sled is, well, look at it. I'm 5'9", about 220 pounds. maybe 221, or I don't know, not important. Anyway, you can fit a lot of stuff in this. And when the ice is safe, I actually put the smaller one away, and no matter how much gear I'm bringing, this is gonna be the sled I'm using during the coldest part of winter. As good as this jet sled is, I actually did some modifications to it, and I think that made this jet sled even better than some of the more pricey ones. The first thing I did was I took some 2x6s and I ripped them down. The reason why I did that was I put it underneath this lip and I added these eye bolts that go through the plastic and through the 2x6 that I ripped down, and I added 3 of them on each side, 2 on the back. I did this that way I could hook straps to these and I could round over my gear and I could hook the straps around it to make sure everything stays secure inside the sled. The other thing I did was I picked up these kayak handles and I drilled those again right into the 2x6 that's ripped down underneath this lip. This gives me the ability to pull the sled sideways if I need to, and I also put one on the back so I can pull that out of the back of my truck, and it's a nice sturdy handle that's not going to break the plastic, especially when it's cold. As you guys can see here, I added a 2x3, and that goes to the eye bolts for the hitch. The reason why I did this was because I wanted to distribute the weight and the pressure when I was pulling this with the four-wheeler across the whole front of the sled, instead of just on the holes that came factory. I also put a 2x3 on the bottom for the same exact reason. As you can see here, there's another eye bolt coming out of the back. Now the reason I have an eye bolt coming out of the back is 2 things. One, I can hook onto this with a strap and pull it with my snowmobile the opposite way if I happen to get stuck going through the woods to get to the water. Or I can hook another hitch to this and hook the Jet Sled XL to the back of that, and now I have room for even more gear. Now I don't do that very often. I'm gonna save that for when I have multiple people going out for an overnight on the ice, but it's always good to have that option just in case you wanna do it. And again, here's the handle for when I pull it backwards out of the truck, or if I just wanna pull it around from the back side, I got that handle so I can do that. On the back side of this and on the XL, I have these runners. These are on Amazon for about $44. And they come 3 to a pack. So as you can see, 1, 2, 3 would be 1 pack, 1, 2, 3 would be 1 pack, and that would leave me with 1 that I would have to buy. So I ended up buying 4 or 5 packs, and I was able to do the complete bottom of this and the bottom of the XL. It's a little bit pricey, but adding the 2x4s and all the eye bolts and stuff like that, I wanted this to last. And putting these on, they're replaceable when they start wearing out. It really saves the bottom of these, so you don't have to get a new jet sled every couple years. This Magnum cost me about $200. So it's about double what the XL is, but it's really not a bad price when you look at what you're getting. It's only roughly $76 more than that tiny jet sled, the Pelican, that I showed you guys first. So just to summarize kind of all the jet sleds together, I really recommend having the XL for early and late ice, and the Magnum if you plan on doing overnights, or if you have your shack that you want to fit in there securely, and if you have a bunch of gear. If you don't go early and late ice, but you have a couple kids, wife, girlfriend, whatever, and you have more gear than what you can handle in the XL, maybe you just get this one and you wait for the ice to be safe enough that you can use your ATV or snowmobile to pull everything out. Now let's do the fun thing. Let's load this sled up with the remaining gear that I would take on a long day trip or an overnight. Do you guys see what I mean about needing more room when you do overnights or even long day trips? This is a ton of gear, and this isn't even all of it. My Vexlar's still in the mail, fishing tackle that's still hanging on the wall in my garage, extra clothing, food, thermoses for your coffee, and more stuff to add to this. Again, you can always pack things a little bit better. I highly recommend if you have this bigger one, you do what I did, rip some 2x6s or 2x4s, put it underneath this lip, add some eye bolts, and just be able to get some straps. I did this style strap instead of the ratcheting, so I can just pull it tight and I don't have to deal with the ice freezing in the ratchet itself. And to pull all this weight, I want to talk to you guys about the hitches. There's a couple different styles, anything from the rope that comes with it, which is complete garbage, or the round aluminum hitch, which is about $40. I don't recommend that one just because it bends so easily. If you're pulling this with a snowmobile and the back end of this turns sideways, you're just gonna bend that thing all the crap. I recommend this square stock hitch. It's about $50 at Dick's Sporting Goods. And it's definitely more sturdy. Yes, anything could happen and your sled could spin around and enough force would probably even bend this. However, this will take a lot more of a beating than that cheap aluminum one will. So there you guys have it. That's my opinion on the jet sled. That's the jet sleds that work best for me. I like having two. If you guys only have room for one, you guys definitely have to make that decision on if it will work for you, if you go with the big one or if you go with the small one. If you're not doing overnights and you guys don't have camera gear and you're not going to bring a bunch of food and stuff, even if you have to go back for the shack or maybe put your pack basket on your back and have the kids carry a couple backpacks for some other gear, you could definitely get away with the Shappell XL. I used that one for a long time before I started collecting more gear to bring out on the ice to show you guys on the channel. If you guys just have your traps, your auger, your heat source, a shack, and a couple other little things like chairs, I feel like you could spend the $100 and just settle with the XL. If you want to do overnights, or maybe your kids don't want to have to lug backpacks and you have a snowmobile to pull it, and you don't mind waiting for that ice to get 6 to 8 inches so you can use your snowmobile or four-wheeler, I highly recommend the Shappell Magnum. It fits well in the back of a standard pickup truck. You can shut that tailgate so it's nice and secure. And as you guys can see, you can fit an absolute ton of stuff that your girlfriend probably told you you don't need. It's now time for me to lug all this stuff back into the garage. So I do want to say good luck to all you hunters. I'm hoping to put out some videos in the next couple of weeks and hopefully we can harvest ourselves a nice buck. If you don't hunt and you're impatiently waiting for ice fishing season to start, I'm right there with you. I can't wait. Get your gear out, shop for those preseason deals, and we'll see you guys out on the ice.